"You have 10 seconds to put that envelope down," Marcus Reed said, his voice so controlled that Officer Daniel Whitmore mistook it for fear. The old silver watch on Marcus's wrist had vibrated twice, the signal that Deputy United States Marshal Evelyn Carter and her team had reached the block. Outside Westbridge Station, rain moved across the windows in thin silver lines, hiding 6 unmarked federal vehicles beneath the darkness. Inside, no one moved. Whitmore stood behind the front counter with one finger pressed beneath the raised red seal of a federal preservation order and search warrant. His expression carried the confidence of a man who believed every warning from a black citizen was a challenge to his badge. 10 seconds until what? He asked. Marcus kept his hands visible. His charcoal coat was damp from the storm, but the sealed document had remained dry beneath it. Until this stops being a misunderstanding. Sergeant Thomas Hale stood near the records hallway, staring at the federal court emblem stamped across the envelope. He recognized it. The desk clerk recognized the delivery code. Both had already told Whitmore to call the verification number printed beneath the seal. He had refused. In the waiting area, a black mother sat beside her adult son, who had been held for nearly 4 hours without receiving a clear explanation. They watched silently, familiar with the danger of being seen as difficult inside a building where one person controlled the meaning of every movement. 9 seconds, Marcus said. Whitmore smiled. "You think someone important is coming for you. This was never about whether I am important." Marcus glanced toward the glass doors. Beyond them, headlights remained dark, engines idling beneath the sound of rain. "It is about whether you follow the law when you believe no one important is watching." The room tightened around those words. Hale stepped forward. "Daniel, place the envelope on the counter. We can verify it in less than a minute." Whitmore did not look at him. "Stay out of this. I am trying to stop you from making a federal mistake." The mistake was letting him walk in here carrying restricted material. The mother, in the waiting area, lowered her eyes. The desk clerk stopped typing. Marcus did not react to the insult hidden inside Whitmore's words. He had learned long ago that dignity did not become stronger when shouted. 7 seconds. Whitmore pushed his thumb deeper beneath the flap. Hale's voice sharpened. "Do not open it." 5 seconds, Marcus said. "You are not giving orders in my station," Whitmore replied. 4. The desk clerk reached toward the telephone. Whitmore stopped her with a glance. 3. Outside, the first vehicle moved toward the curb. 2. White headlights cut through the rain and spread across the lobby floor. Whitmore finally looked toward the windows, but pride had already carried his hand beyond reason. 1. He tore through the seal. The sound was small, almost delicate, yet every person in the room understood that something irreversible had happened. 6 federal vehicles illuminated the station at once. Doors opened in perfect sequence. Gold lettering appeared across dark jackets as United States Marshals stepped into the rain. Whitmore stared through the glass, the damaged envelope still in his hands. Marcus looked at the torn seal, then met the officer's eyes. "You were not counting down to my rescue," he said. "You were counting down to your final chance to obey the law." 47 minutes earlier, Marcus Reed stood beneath the narrow awning of a closed pharmacy 3 blocks from Westbridge Station, watching rain sweep across the empty street in silver sheets. The city had gone quiet beneath the storm. Traffic lights changed for no one. Storefront windows remained dark, and water rushed along the curb toward a clogged drain. Marcus kept the sealed federal preservation order and search warrant beneath his charcoal coat, protecting it from the weather with the same care he had shown since leaving the courthouse. To anyone passing by, he looked like an ordinary man waiting for the rain to ease. That was exactly how the operation had been designed. No marked escort, no visible badge, no sign that 6 unmarked federal vehicles were positioned within 2 miles of the station. Marcus checked the old silver watch on his wrist. It had belonged to his father, Isaiah Reed, a public high school history teacher who had spent 32 years reminding students that truth did not disappear simply because powerful people refused to recognize it. The time was 11 o'clock. Marcus removed a plain cell phone from his pocket and called the only number stored inside it. Deputy United States Marshal Evelyn Carter answered after one ring. "Confirm your location," she said. 3 blocks south of the station, across from the municipal parking garage. "We have visual contact." Marcus glanced toward the dark windows around him, but saw nothing unusual. Carter's team was close enough to intervene and far enough away to let the lawful delivery proceed without spectacle. "Review the assignment," she said. Marcus looked down at the protected envelope. "I enter through the public lobby and request Captain Richard Cole. If he is unavailable, I request the supervising officer on duty." The document remains sealed until the receiving official verifies the delivery code. "If someone else demands possession, I direct that person to the federal number printed beneath the seal. If verification is refused, I document the refusal and leave, provided I am free to do so." Carter paused. "If they interfere with you or the warrant, my team enters under the court order." Marcus listened to the rain striking the metal awning above him. "Understood." Her voice softened slightly. "You are a cooperating witness, not bait. Your purpose is to complete the delivery, not provoke a reaction. I know. Your scheduled check-in is at 11:57. Your watch will vibrate twice when the entry team reaches the block. Do not count on that signal unless the situation has already escalated." Marcus touched the worn edge of the watch. "I will check in before then." He looked toward Westbridge Station, its pale concrete walls rising beyond the intersection. 14 years earlier, he had entered that same building to ask about a friend who never made it home after a traffic stop. The desk officer had claimed there was no record. Years later, while working in the municipal archives, Marcus found the missing report filed beneath a different case number. One altered record led to another. Missing camera references. Changed timestamps. Complaints closed without interviews. What first appeared to be carelessness slowly formed a pattern. Too many families were told there was nothing left to find, Marcus said. Tonight, that excuse ends. Carter remained silent for a moment. Do not let their reaction change your purpose. Marcus looked at the sealed warrant beneath his coat. My purpose is the record. He ended the call and stepped into the rain. The walk took less than 5 minutes, carrying him past the courthouse steps where Elijah Grant's mother had once stood holding her son's photograph while officials walked around her. By the time Marcus reached the station, rain had darkened his shoulders, but the document remained dry. He climbed the concrete steps and placed one hand on the glass entrance. Inside, Officer Daniel Whitmore looked up from the front counter. Suspicion appeared on his face before Marcus had spoken a single word. Marcus opened the door anyway. The glass door closed behind Marcus with a soft hydraulic sigh, sealing out the rain and replacing it with the dry hum of fluorescent lights. Westbridge Station smelled of old coffee, wet fabric, and floor cleaner. A muted television in the corner displayed a weather map, while a printer clicked behind the front counter. Officer Daniel Whitmore watched Marcus approach without offering a greeting. His eyes moved from the damp charcoal coat to the sealed envelope beneath Marcus's arm, then back to Marcus's face. Suspicion arrived before any question. What do you want? Whitmore asked. Marcus placed his driver's license on the counter and kept both hands visible. I am here to deliver a sealed federal preservation order and search warrant directly to Captain Richard Cole. Whitmore did not reach for the desk phone. He picked up the license instead and studied it longer than necessary. Marcus Reed, he read aloud. Southside address. That is correct. What kind of work do you do? Marcus glanced at the station clock. 11:12. My occupation is not part of the delivery verification. Whitmore leaned back in his chair. I decide what is relevant inside this building. Marcus turned the envelope slightly so the federal contact number beneath the seal faced him. The delivery code and verification number will confirm my authorization. Whitmore ignored both. Why are you bringing this here so late? The order requires service before midnight. And they sent you? The question carried more than doubt. It carried disbelief that someone who looked like Marcus could have been trusted with anything important. Marcus had heard that tone in courthouse corridors, city offices, and records departments, always from people who asked for credentials only after deciding they would not respect them. Yes, he said. At the far end of the lobby, a black mother sat beside her adult son on a row of plastic chairs. She held a folded coat across her lap and watched the counter with tired eyes. Her son had been waiting nearly 4 hours for someone to explain why he had not been allowed to leave. When Whitmore's voice sharpened, both of them became still. Marcus noticed. So did the desk clerk, who stopped typing for a moment before lowering her eyes again. Open the envelope, Whitmore said. I am not authorized to open it. Then hand it to me. The document must be transferred to Captain Cole or the supervising officer after verification. Whitmore's mouth tightened. You walk into a police station carrying a sealed package, refuse to explain what is inside, and expect me to trust you. It is identified by the court seal, the service code, and the verification number. That red stamp could have come from anywhere. From the hallway behind the counter, Sergeant Thomas Hale appeared carrying a paper cup. He was in his early 50s, broad-shouldered, with silver beginning to show at his temples. His gaze settled on the envelope, and something in his expression changed. He recognized the federal court emblem. "What is going on?" Hale asked. Whitmore answered before Marcus could speak. "He claims he has confidential federal business with Captain Cole." Hale stepped closer. "Did you verify the delivery code?" "Not yet." "Then verify it." For one brief moment, the simplest path remained open. The desk. Phone sat less than 2 feet from Whitmore's hand. Marcus's identification rested on the counter. Every detail could have been confirmed in under a minute. Whitmore looked at Hale, then at Marcus. "First, I want to know why he is really here." Marcus met his eyes. "You already have the answer. I have a story. You have a federal warrant." The desk clerk reached slowly toward the phone. Whitmore placed one hand over the receiver. "No one calls anyone until I finish asking questions." Hale frowned. "Daniel, there is no reason to delay verification." Whitmore lifted Marcus's license. "The address is 6 miles from here. How did you get downtown?" "By cab." "Where is the receipt?" Marcus studied him. The question had nothing to do with the warrant. Whitmore was no longer gathering facts. He was rearranging ordinary details until they resembled suspicion, trying to make his first judgment feel justified. "You are not trying to verify me," Marcus said. "You are trying to prove the conclusion you reached when I entered." The lobby fell silent. Whitmore set the license down but did not return it. "Empty your pockets." Hale stepped forward. "That is unnecessary." He brought restricted federal material into the station. "Then verify it." Marcus looked at the clock. 11:16. 41 minutes remained before his scheduled check-in. He could still leave if they returned his identification and allowed him to go. Then he looked toward the mother and her son. The young man sat with his hands folded, careful not to move too quickly, as though even frustration might be interpreted as guilt. Marcus understood that Whitmore's suspicion had not begun with the envelope. The envelope had only given it a place to land. He slowly placed his phone, wallet, keys, and old silver watch on the counter. Whitmore looked down at the items with a faint smile, as though cooperation itself were a confession. Marcus kept his voice even. "You have everything you need to confirm who I am. What happens next will not be a misunderstanding. It will be a choice." Whitmore examined the items Marcus had placed on the counter as though an ordinary wallet, a set of keys, and a plain cell phone might reveal the threat he had already imagined. He picked up the silver watch last, turning its scratched case beneath the fluorescent light. "This worth much?" he asked. "It belonged to my father," Marcus replied. "That was not my question." "Then ask one related to the warrant." The desk clerk lowered her eyes, but Marcus had already seen the discomfort cross her face. Sergeant Thomas Hale set his paper cup beside the telephone and stepped closer. "Daniel, return his property and verify the service code." Whitmore ignored him. He unfolded the cab receipt taken from Marcus's coat and studied the address. "You said the cab brought you downtown." "It did. This says the ride ended 4 blocks away. Road construction blocked the direct route." Whitmore gave a quiet laugh. "Convenient." Marcus looked at him without anger. Each answer had become another accusation because Whitmore was not searching for facts. He was trying to force ordinary details into the shape of guilt. "You keep changing the question whenever the answer fails you," Marcus said. Whitmore placed the receipt on the counter. "You think you are smarter than everyone in this station?" "No. I think everyone in this station understands what you are doing." The words moved through the lobby more powerfully than a raised voice. The black mother in the waiting area tightened her hands around the coat on her lap. Her son kept his gaze lowered, his posture careful and controlled. Hale glanced toward them, then back at Whitmore. "This ends now. Call the number." Whitmore pointed toward the sealed envelope. "He refuses to surrender restricted material. It is a federal court document. According to him. According to the seal, the service code, and the courthouse number printed in front of you." The desk clerk reached toward the telephone. Whitmore covered the receiver with his hand. "Nobody calls until I authorize it." Hill's expression hardened. "I am the supervising officer on duty." For the first time, Whitmore hesitated. He could have stepped aside. He could have returned Marcus's property and allowed a call that would take less than a minute. He could have prevented everything that followed. Instead, he looked at Marcus and said, "Turn around." Hale moved between them. There is no legal basis to detain him. He entered this building with restricted federal material and refused a lawful order. You have not established that your order was lawful. Whitmore stared past Hale. "Turn around, Mr. Reed." Marcus looked toward the glass entrance behind him. Carter had instructed him to leave if verification was refused, provided he remained free to do so. But Whitmore still held his identification, his phone, and the warrant. Any movement toward the door would be interpreted as an attempt to flee. Marcus slowly turned, choosing restraint over escalation. The metallic click behind him was small, yet the lobby seemed to grow quieter when everyone heard it. Hale looked at Whitmore in disbelief. "Remove those restraints. He can leave when I determine what he is carrying." Marcus looked toward the mother and her son. The woman met his eyes for one brief moment, and he saw recognition there. Questions without purpose. Suspicion without evidence. Authority creating its own justification. Marcus turned his head slightly toward Whitmore. "This is your first clear opportunity to stop." Whitmore smiled without warmth. "You are not in a position to offer opportunities." Hale pointed at the verification number. "Daniel, make the call." The desk clerk spoke softly. "The number matches the federal courthouse directory." Whitmore looked at all three of them. The truth was no longer hidden. It was waiting on the counter, asking only to be confirmed. He picked up the envelope. Marcus watched him carry it toward the desk lamp. "That was your second opportunity," he said. Whitmore placed his thumb against the raised red seal. "You do not decide when this ends." Marcus looked at his father's watch lying beside the telephone, its second hand moving steadily forward. "Neither do you." Whitmore carried the envelope beneath the desk lamp and turned it slowly in his hands, studying the raised federal seal as if suspicion could change what it represented. Marcus remained near the counter with his hands secured behind him, his posture straight and his breathing controlled. The fluorescent lights cast a pale glow across the lobby while rain tapped against the windows in a steady rhythm. Sergeant Thomas Hale stood a few feet away, watching Whitmore's fingers move along the edge of the envelope. "Read the instructions beneath the seal," Hale said. "Then call the courthouse number." Whitmore did not answer. He tilted the envelope toward the light and examined the service code. The desk clerk had already confirmed that the number matched the federal directory. Hale had already identified himself as the supervising officer. Marcus had already provided identification and a lawful method of verification. Every reasonable path remained open. Whitmore simply refused to take one. "You expect me to believe a federal court sent you here alone?" he asked. Marcus looked at the station clock. 11:43. "You are not required to believe me. You are required to verify the warrant. You keep speaking like you have authority in this room." "The court has authority. I am only delivering its order." That answer seemed to irritate Whitmore more than defiance would have. Marcus was not competing with him. He was not demanding special treatment. He was asking for a routine procedure, and each calm request made Whitmore's refusal more visible to everyone watching. The black mother in the waiting area leaned closer to her son. Hale noticed and lowered his voice. "Daniel, place the envelope on the counter. This has gone far enough." Whitmore looked at him. "You are taking his side." "There should not be sides in a verification call." The desk clerk turned her monitor slightly. "The service code matches the federal court system," she said. Whitmore glanced at the screen. For one brief second, uncertainty crossed his face. He could still return Marcus's property. He could still remove the restraints. He could still allow the truth to enter the room without consequence. Instead, he reached for a metal letter opener. Marcus watched him lift it. "Do not break that seal." Whitmore slid the tip beneath the flap. "What are you afraid I will find?" "I am concerned about what you will prove." The envelope opened with a dry tearing sound. Hale closed his eyes. For half a second, Whitmore removed the first page and unfolded it beneath the lamp. At the top appeared the seal of the United States District Court, followed by the signature of a federal magistrate judge. The document was a preservation order and search warrant authorizing federal investigators to secure arrest reports, booking logs, surveillance archives, internal communications, access records, and evidence transfers connected to 27 cases. No station employee was permitted to delete, alter, move, or conceal any listed material. Whitmore's expression changed as he read. Confidence disappeared first. Then color. His eyes moved down the page and stopped at several names. Captain Richard Cole, Lieutenant Stephen Mercer, Detective Aaron Pike. The second page listed case numbers, dates, and records marked for immediate review. Hale stepped closer and saw one name that made him freeze. Elijah Grant. 8 years earlier, Hale had signed a statement confirming that no station video existed from the night Grant was detained. Weeks later, he had found a backup reference in an equipment log, but Cole had dismissed it as a clerical error. Hale had accepted the explanation because accepting it had been easier than challenging the department. Now the missing file appeared in a federal warrant. Where did they get this number? Hale whispered. Marcus looked at him. From the copy that survived, Whitmore unfolded another page. It contained administrator access records showing that reports had been changed after complaints were filed. The same credentials appeared repeatedly. Cole's office, Mercer's terminal, Pike's evidence account. The station grew quieter with every line. Whitmore was no longer deciding whether the warrant was real. He was calculating how much the investigators already knew. Marcus looked at his father's watch resting beside the telephone. 11:47. 10 minutes remained before his scheduled check-in. Set the pages down, Marcus said. Call the number and preserve the warrant exactly as you found it. Hale extended his hand. Give it to me, Daniel. Whitmore stared at the list of names. Fear had finally entered the room, but it did not. Make him honest. It made him desperate. Marcus met his eyes. This is your final opportunity. Whitmore looked toward Captain Cole's hallway, then back at the document. His hands tightened around the first page. The station clock changed to 11:48. Then he pulled the paper apart, and the smallest sound in the room became the one no one would ever forget. For one suspended second, the two torn halves remained in Whitmore's hands while every person in the lobby stared at them. Then the old silver watch on the counter vibrated twice. The sound was faint, almost lost beneath the fluorescent hum, but Marcus recognized it immediately. Carter's team had reached the block. Outside, 6 unmarked vehicles turned toward Westbridge Station from opposite directions, their headlights dimmed by the rain. Whitmore looked at the watch, then at Marcus. What was that? Marcus kept his voice calm. A signal you were given every chance to avoid. The desk clerk's computer chimed as a legal hold notice appeared across the screen. The City Information Technology Administrator, acting under the federal court order, had placed the listed records under preservation control. Files connected to the 27 cases could no longer be deleted, renamed, or altered without creating a permanent audit trail. The clerk read the message twice. The record system has been locked for preservation, she said. Whitmore moved toward her terminal. Override it. She pulled her hands away from the keyboard. I cannot. The order is active. Sergeant Thomas Hale stepped between Whitmore and the desk. Do not touch the system. The station seemed to contract around them. The printer stopped. The clicking of keyboards disappeared. Officers emerged from the hallway, drawn by the sudden silence. The black mother in the waiting area placed one hand over her son's, and both watched as Whitmore's confidence began to fracture. He still held the second page of the warrant, but it no longer looked like evidence under his control. It looked like proof of what he had done. Marcus glanced at the station clock. 11:49. 8 minutes remained before his scheduled check-in, but the torn warrant had already triggered the contingency Carter described. Whitmore looked toward Hale. Lock the front entrance. Hale did not move. Why? This could be a coordinated breach. The only breach happened when you ignored a federal seal. Whitmore turned toward Marcus. You arranged this. I completed a lawful delivery. You came here expecting us to fail. Marcus met his eyes. I came here expecting someone to make a telephone call. Outside, the first federal vehicle stopped at the curb. Another pulled in behind it. 4 more took positions along the side street, an employee parking lot. Headlights spread across the lobby windows, turning the rain into bright silver lines. Dark figures stepped from the vehicles wearing jackets marked with gold federal lettering. They did not rush. They moved with the quiet precision of people who had already confirmed their authority. Deputy United States Marshal Evelyn Carter approached the front entrance while 2 marshals secured the sidewalk, and another team moved toward the side door. Federal investigators and a digital evidence specialist followed behind them carrying sealed equipment cases. Hale reached for the key to Marcus's restraints. Whitmore blocked his path. He stays secured until we know what they want. Hale looked at the damaged warrant, the preservation notice on the screen, and the federal vehicles outside. We know exactly what they want. He unlocked the restraints and placed them on the counter. Whitmore stared at him. I did not authorize that. Hale returned the key to his belt. You stopped following the law the moment you refused to verify him. Marcus reached for his father's watch and fastened it around his wrist. The time was 11:51. Through the glass, Carter raised her credentials and pointed toward the desk phone. A moment later, the telephone rang. The clerk answered and activated the speaker. Carter's voice filled the lobby, steady and unmistakable. This is Deputy United States Marshal Evelyn Carter. Preserve all documents, step away from every computer, and unlock the public entrance. Federal officers are executing a lawful court order. Whitmore looked at the torn paper in his hand, then at the line of marshals waiting beyond the glass. Marcus stood beside him, no longer restrained and no less composed than before. The station is not being secured because I am important, he said. It is being secured because the truth inside it is. The public entrance unlocked with a soft mechanical click, and Deputy United States Marshal Evelyn Carter stepped into the lobby without raising her voice. Rain glistened across the shoulders of her dark jacket, and the gold federal lettering on her chest caught the fluorescent light as 5 marshals entered behind her. 2 investigators from the Federal Bureau of Investigation Public Corruption Unit followed with sealed evidence cases, while a digital evidence specialist carried a compact equipment bag. Their movements were calm, measured, and exact. No one shouted. No one needed to. Carter stopped beneath the station clock and looked across the room. Marcus stood beside the counter with his father's watch fastened around his wrist. Sergeant Thomas Hale remained near him. The desk clerk sat motionless before the preserved computer system. Whitmore stood several feet away, still holding one torn page as though possession could protect him from what it proved. Carter's eyes settled on the paper. Place the document on the counter, Officer Whitmore. Whitmore hesitated. This is a local police station. You cannot take control without explaining your authority. Carter opened her credential case and held it where every person in the lobby could see. Our authority comes from the United States District Court, not from the condition of the copy you damaged. Whitmore glanced toward the camera above the front desk. Its indicator light remained steady. Carter continued. The original preservation order and search warrant remain filed with the court. Destroying a served copy does not cancel either one. A marshal approached with a transparent evidence sleeve. Whitmore slowly placed the torn page on the counter. The marshal collected it, then secured the remaining fragments without comment. Carter turned toward Marcus. Mr. Reed, were you prevented from completing the delivery? Yes. Were your identification and personal belongings taken? Yes. Were you restrained after offering a valid verification process? Marcus looked at Whitmore. Yes. Carter nodded to an investigator, who documented every item before returning Marcus's property. She did not introduce him as an agent, a commander, or a high-ranking official. She did not need a dramatic title to justify what had happened. Mr. Reed is a cooperating federal witness and the authorized records custodian for this delivery, she said. The words moved through the lobby like a quiet shift in pressure. The black mother in the waiting area looked at Marcus with new understanding. Her son leaned forward. Hale lowered his eyes, recognizing how close the station had come to burying another truth simply because no one had challenged Whitmore soon enough. Whitmore stared at Marcus. A witness caused this entire response. Carter faced him. No, the evidence inside this building caused the response. Mr. Reed was trusted to help preserve it. She turned toward her team. Secure the records division, evidence storage, server room, and Captain Richard Cole's office. No employee accesses a system, cabinet, or department-issued device without federal supervision. The marshals separated through the building with controlled efficiency. Access cards were collected. Doors were sealed. Computer terminals were photographed before specialists began preserving their contents. Every movement was logged. Every instruction was witnessed. The station that had once depended on confusion and silence was now being measured by people who recorded everything. Hale looked toward Carter. The order lists Elijah Grant. Carter met his eyes. His case is one of 27 under review. The mother in the waiting area covered her mouth. Marcus watched Hale's face tighten. You know the name? He said. Hale nodded slowly. I signed a statement saying there was no video. Was that true? Hale looked toward the hallway leading to Cole's office. I believed what I was told. Carter's voice remained even. Belief will not be enough tonight. We will need facts. At that moment, the secured hallway door opened. Captain Richard. Cole stepped into the lobby, fastening the front of his uniform jacket with irritation already forming on his face. He saw Carter, the marshals, the evidence sleeves, and Marcus standing free beside the counter. The irritation vanished. Carter raised the surviving page of the federal order. Captain Cole, remain where you are. This station is now under federal evidence preservation. Cole stopped. For the first time in years, the hallway behind him no longer looked like a path to authority. It looked like the place the truth had finally reached. Captain Richard Cole remained beneath the fluorescent lights, his hands lowered and his expression carefully controlled. For years, the station had reacted to his presence before he spoke. Conversations ended. Doors opened. Reports changed direction. Tonight, no one moved for him. Deputy United States Marshal Evelyn Carter stood between Cole and the records hallway, holding the surviving page of the federal order inside a clear evidence sleeve. Captain Cole, surrender your access card, department-issued phone, office keys, and badge. Cole looked past her towards Sergeant Thomas Hale. Thomas, tell them this is a misunderstanding. Hale did not answer. His eyes remained fixed on the name Elijah Grant printed among the listed cases. The silence between the two men revealed more than any explanation could have. Cole turned back to Carter. This station has active investigations, people in custody, and public safety responsibilities. You cannot interrupt operations because a civilian delivered damaged paperwork. Carter's expression did not change. The warrant was issued by a federal court, preserved in the court record, and executed after documented interference. The paper in that sleeve is evidence. It is not the source of our authority. Behind her, investigators from the Federal Bureau of Investigation Public Corruption Unit began photographing the records room before opening any cabinet. Digital specialists connected secure equipment to the station server, creating verified copies of every file before anyone could alter them. Each action was logged. Each timestamp was preserved. The station had spent years depending on missing records and uncertain memories. Now every second left a trail. Cole looked toward Marcus. You did this. Marcus stood beside the front counter with his father's watch on his wrist. I found what your department tried to erase. Cole gave a faint smile that vanished almost immediately. You worked in municipal archives. You processed forms. You did not understand police work. I understood that arrest reports were changed after complaints were filed. I understood that camera references disappeared while original timestamps remained. I understood that the same administrator credentials appeared across 27 altered cases. The lobby grew still. Marcus continued. And I understood that every missing record belonged to a person whose family was told there was nothing left to review. Carter nodded toward a marshal near Cole. Collect his access items. Cole placed his keys and phone on the counter, but kept the access card in his hand. Routine corrections are not evidence of corruption. Hale finally looked up. Deleting backup references is not a routine correction. Cole turned toward him. Be careful, Thomas. The warning was quiet, familiar, and practiced. Hale had heard it behind closed doors for years. This time, everyone heard it. He removed his own badge and placed it on the counter. I was careful for too long, Hale said. Careful enough to stay silent. Careful enough to tell myself I did not know the whole story. Cole stared at him. You are choosing the word of a stranger over your own department. Hale looked toward Marcus. He gave us every chance to follow procedure. Daniel refused because he had already decided what kind of man was standing in front of him. Carter directed the marshals to separate Cole and Whitmore for formal interviews. Their badges, access cards, and department-issued devices were secured without spectacle. No one celebrated. The shift in power happened through documentation, lawful orders, and privileges being removed one by one. In the waiting area, the black mother stood. My son has been here since 7, she said. No one has told us why. Carter assigned an investigator to review the detention record. Within minutes, the answer appeared on a preserved terminal. There was no signed booking authorization, no active warrant, and no documented legal basis for continued detention. The young man was released to his mother. She took his hand as they walked toward the door, and the desk clerk quietly wiped tears from her face. Marcus watched them leave. That moment mattered more to him than Cole surrendering his badge. Carter stepped beside him. The archive copies you preserved match what we are finding on the server. Marcus looked toward the hallway where investigators were opening files that had remained closed for years. Then do not make this only about what happened to me. Carter studied him. What should it be about? Every person who never had federal vehicles waiting outside. Every family that was told there was no record. Every citizen who was treated as though dignity required a title. Across the lobby, Hale heard the words and lowered his eyes. Westbridge Station had finally been secured, but Marcus knew the harder work would begin after the doors opened again. By sunrise, the rain had passed, leaving Westbridge beneath a pale gray sky and streets that reflected the first light of morning. Inside the station, investigators from the Federal Bureau of Investigation Public Corruption Unit continued preserving records, sealing evidence cabinets, and documenting every file connected to the 27 cases listed in the federal order. The building was quiet, but it was no longer the silence that protected authority. It was the silence of people being required to answer for what the records showed. Captain Richard Cole remained in a conference room with federal investigators. Officer Daniel Whitmore waited in a separate office without his badge, department-issued phone, or access card. Sergeant Thomas Hale sat at the records desk, writing a statement that reached back 8 years. Each page forced him to confront the moments when he had noticed something wrong and chosen not to ask another question. Marcus stood near the front doors, watching morning lights spread across the lobby floor. His father's silver watch showed 6:12. Deputy United States Marshal Evelyn Carter approached with a folder beneath her arm. The Department of Justice has opened a full review, she said. The court has authorized expanded access to the records. Every complaint connected to the altered files will be reopened, and every family will be contacted by an independent team. Marcus looked toward the empty waiting area where the black mother and her son had sat only hours earlier. 2 paper cups remained beside their chairs. What happens to Hale? He asked. Carter glanced toward the sergeant. Cooperation does not erase years of silence, but it may help establish the truth. Hale heard them and rose from the desk. His badge still rested on the counter where he had placed it. Mr. Reed, he said, I owe you an apology. Marcus waited. I recognized the seal. I knew the verification request was lawful. I still measured the risk to my career before I considered the risk to you. Why? Marcus asked. Hale looked toward Cole's office. This station taught us that loyalty meant protecting the department from consequences. Marcus shook his head. That was not loyalty. That was permission. Hale lowered his eyes. I understand that now. Then tell them everything you understood before now. Hale lifted his written statement. I will. A moment later, Whitmore appeared at the end of the hallway accompanied by 2 marshals. Without the badge and access card that had once announced his authority, he looked less certain, but Marcus felt no satisfaction. Consequences were not revenge. They were the point where excuses finally stopped working. Whitmore looked at him. I did not know who you were, he said. Marcus held his gaze. That was never the problem. Whitmore frowned. You came in carrying federal documents. You should have explained your position. I gave you identification. I gave you a verification number. I asked you to follow the law. Marcus stepped closer, his voice calm enough that everyone nearby could hear each word. You believed you needed to know whether I was important before deciding whether I deserved fairness. You already knew everything necessary. I was a citizen standing in front of you. Whitmore looked away. Carter opened the front door, allowing cool morning air into the lobby. Marcus reached into his coat and removed the bent metal fastener that had held the envelope closed. He placed it beside Hale's badge. My father used to say records can be hidden, names can be changed, and paper can be destroyed, Marcus said. But truth leaves a pattern. Then he stepped outside. Behind him, investigators continued opening files that had remained closed for years. Whitmore had believed power lived in a badge and a document he could destroy. By sunrise, he understood that the only thing left in pieces was the authority he had abused.